'Tis a hot scorching day in New Jersey, but it doesn't stop an Irishman having his cup of tea. We always drink tea. They say it warms you inside, so if you're warmer inside than it is outside, the heat transfer is going the opposite way, so you get a nice cooling effect. Load of bullshit, actually. But I do like tea. Now, welcome to the first episode on my YouTube channel, The Quiet Stories of Life, where I'll be reading extracts from a book of the same name. I also have another YouTube channel which is erotica, and it's called Erotic Scribbles if you want to chase that up, but it is only for adults. This here is for all family, and it's predominantly a collection of short stories, a lot of them from my travels abroad during my working career, and others that just stories that come into my head or things that happened. But the amount of truth in the book, I don't know, maybe 90% is factual, although it may be written with a more of a fantasy type of script, but that's what it is. The book is available in electronic copy at Barnes & Nobles, Amazon and all good book outlets. But if you want a hard copy, and I do ask you to buy a hard copy, because number one, it keeps me fed, my wife in shoes, the dog happy, and fuel in the car. This is my source of income, so I would appreciate it. And the only place you will get a hard copy is at my webpage or any of the street fairs that I am attending or markets. My website is www.maurice.ie. IE stands for Ireland, if you have not already picked it up on my accent. But I've been living in New Jersey now many years. Well, many, say 10. The first I'm going to read for you today from the book The Quiet Stories of Life will be Afghanistan in the Millennium. And I'll start straight away. Afghanistan in the Millennium, page 151, The Quiet Stories of Life. Afghanistan, that craggy, mountainous country of raw beauty, which after defeating the might of the Russian army, forgot to stop fighting. A vicious civil war followed and continues to this day in 2017, some 40 years later. It is a nightmare of disorder that brings chaos and suffering to the entire population and stunts all hope of development. Today Afghanistan is perhaps better known for its fundamentalist Islamic regime, the Taliban, and the cultivation of poppy plants used in the production of heroin. Such negative propaganda does not offer a fair representation of this country. The yearly drugs trade is estimated between $150 and $500 million, which is not enough to build a football stadium in any Western Hemisphere capital. Additionally, Islam, in its many forms, is the dominant religion in the Middle Eastern belt, stretching from Malaysia to the west coast of Africa. The fundamental difference between Catholicism and Islam is that Catholicism is considered an integral part of life, while for the Muslim, life is considered an integral part of Islam. Various interpretations of Islam exist, from the extremely strict to the moderate. Afghanistan, raked by poverty, practices one of the strictest forms of Islam I have yet encountered. How deeply this is attributable to the past war and ongoing civil unrest, I cannot say. Certainly, the government is directly accountable to a single mullah, Muhammad Omar, who partially sighted after losing an eye in combat, resides in the southern regions of Kandahar and Pakistan. His interpretation of the Holy Quran is one of the strictest imaginable. The two most prominent government ministries in Kabul are the Ministry of Defence and the Ministry of Propagation and Good Virtues and the Suppression of Vices. The latter comprises of zealots whose interpretation of Islam could be considered humorous, even insane, if the repercussions were not so damning on the general population, whom I found in the majority extremely civil, tolerant and hospitable. The Ministry of Virtue and Vices demands that all women of sexual age be completely covered in public and accompanied by a direct male relative. Often the battle taxis around Kabul are stopped and the occupants questioned as to their family connections. Head shavings, beatings and jail awaits the disrespectful. Adultery may result in stoning for her and hanging for him. Women are denied an education and their marriages by parental arrangement. In schools, which are mostly open-air venues, boys are taught solely to recite the Quran. Western dress is frowned upon. For example, wearing a tie in a passport photograph is not permissible. Women are not allowed to wear white socks, nor are men allowed to wear white socks. It implies promiscuity. It is forbidden for a woman to ride on the carrier of her husband's bicycle, or for children to fly homemade kites, a popular pastime in Afghanistan. At prayer time, it is not uncommon to see shops being forcibly closed and groups of men being led down the street towards the mosque. In the football stadium of Kabul, public punishments and occasional executions occur before the match. At half-time, the spectators are flogged onto the pitch to pray. It is a bit different from European venues where spectators are fenced off the pitch. Needless to say, alcohol, bacon, music, dancing and television are banned, as is all photography and explicit literature, which encompasses everything that has a photograph of a person or animal. Under strict interpretation, the sublime becomes the ridiculous. Boxers are not allowed to thump each other on the head. Recently, a visiting team from Pakistan were taken off the football field and had their heads shaved and were taken to the mosque for prayer before being escorted to the border. Their crime? They bared their legs in public. However, one must remember that Afghanistan has little infrastructure and less electricity. There are few roads, scant health facilities, adverse climate, and the people live hand-to-mouth existence and are totally dependent on their livestock and crops. It wasn't always this way. Afghanistan was once on the Silk Route from China. Past Greeks and Buddhist cities, temples and artifacts are ingrained in the landscape. The city of Ghazni was once noted for its intellectual and religious tolerance. Afghanistan is also noted for its richness of lapis, rare gemstones and mineral wealth. During the mid-70s, it was the Mecca for hippies on pilgrimage to Kathmandu. Indeed, the folk singer Donovan lived there for 2 years. In Kabul, I saw a video of him singing near a rowing boat and sadly didn't get a copy. Kabul itself in the early 70s was noted for its casinos, bars, cheap drugs and beautiful women who embraced miniskirts. Unfortunately, for the entire year I was there, I saw not a single female face except those of begging street urchins. However, there are always positive signs of one looks. The people I worked alongside on the occasions and I entrusted my welfare to, they tried very hard to live normal lives. They do their absolute best under difficult circumstances. Thankfully, history has shown that a zealot's born fiercely and fade quickly. Before leaving Afghanistan, in 2001. I saw men smiling on the streets of Kabul, and the religious police didn't seem to wield their whips with the same enthusiasm. Afghanistan is a sufferer of its geological location, a cat preyed upon by wild dogs, abused by Russia, abandoned by America, and squeezed by Iran and Pakistan, its boisterous neighbours. Afghanistan is a country that has been meticulously destroyed by outsiders. Like the phoenix rising from the ashes, their only hope lies in rebirth. I believe for Afghanistan the pendulum of time must swing in their direction, and the rest of the world needs to fuck off. Afghanistan and the Millennium. I spent about 2 years there. I still keep in touch with a lot of people from Afghanistan, and the situation is just as I was there before. Very little has changed. Sad. Anyway, this was the first rendering from my YouTube channel, The Quiet Stories of Life. I thank you for visiting. I'll be reading perhaps 6 or 8 or 10 stories, but I do encourage you, please go buy a copy of the book, available at Maurice, MAURICE.ie, or any good outlet, an electronic copy. Thank you very much.